ethics process. He was embarrassed, and he came forward as soon as he knew that they were in an error. Just doesn't wash with the record that's been presented to you today.
And in the end, it was the Republican committee chair who pushed the punishment hardest.
The American people are bone tired of partisanship. They want us to work together. Today, we conclude this case by imposing a heavy penalty on the leader of this House. It is a tough penalty, unprecedented and appropriate.
Gingrich stayed out of sight during the vote, and as he left the Capitol, acknowledged only he was glad it was over. But now there's a new controversy in the works. Can he use campaign funds to pay the fine, or should he be forced to pay for it out of his own pocket? At one point today, Gingrich's friends actually argued that if congressmen were made to pay for such things with their own money, it would discourage people from running for Congress. But Bedard, Gingrich's aides, said only their lawyers wanted to study the law on that one. Dan.
And now the rest is up to the Justice Department and the Internal Revenue Service. Thanks, Bob Schieffer. On the other side of the country, the plaintiffs today began their final attempt to convince a jury that O.J. Simpson is liable for the deaths of his former wife, Nicole, and Ron Goldman. In closing arguments, plaintiffs' attorneys minced no words, calling Simpson to his face a liar and an unremorseful killer. Through it all, Simpson sat quietly, but he did talk during the break to CBS News correspondent Bill Whitaker.
Plaintiff's lead attorney, Daniel Petrocelli, wasted no time painting his portrait of O.J. Simpson. His language always pointed, often dramatic. Petrocelli called Simpson guilty, a liar. As pictures of murder victims Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson were displayed on a monitor, he said Simpson tried to still their voices, but the pieces of evidence are their voices speaking from the grave, telling us, he said, raising his voice, there's a killer in this courtroom. And he turned and pointed directly at O.J. Simpson. That's the man who confronted them, attacked them, and killed them. He said when Simpson was on the stand, he offered no explanation for the mass of blood, DNA, and fiber evidence at the murder scene, in his Bronco, at his house, all linking Simpson to the murders. But the single most critical piece of evidence, he said, was the much-disputed Bruno Magli shoes, the type that left bloody footprints near the bodies. Simpson, he said, can't explain away the 30 recent photos of him wearing what he had called those ugly-ass shoes, which he swore under oath he'd never owned. If O.J. Simpson were innocent, Petrocelli asked, why would he deny owning these shoes? Because, Petrocelli said, he knows those were the shoes he was wearing when he killed my clients. They are the murderer's shoes, there's no doubt about it. Turning Simpson's sworn testimony against him, Petrocelli placed this picture before the jury and asked, what kind of man, confronted with a bruised and battered picture of Nicole, says, I was just defending myself? What kind of man says cheating on your wife isn't a lie? What kind of man comes to court and says, I never lied about anything important in my life? Answering his own question, Petrocelli said, a guilty man.
I spoke with Simpson during a recess, and he told me it's hard to sit there and listen to someone talking about you, and you can't respond. His attorneys will get a chance to respond for him, probably as early as tomorrow. Dan?
Thanks, Bill Whitaker. CBS News legal consultant Laurie Levinson was in the courtroom today. Laurie, tell us what it was like.
Oh,
Daniel
Dan.
Petrocelli said that there's, quote, a killer in the courtroom.
Dan, it was absolutely amazing when Petrocelli pointed at O.J. and said there's a killer in the courtroom, Orenthal J. Simpson. Everybody looked that direction. And these jurors, even though they're not taking notes, they're really paying attention because this is the last chance for Petrocelli to convince them that O.J. really is the killer.
Laurie Levinson, thanks. Now the latest on the Bill Cosby story. Even as Cosby is dealing with the unsolved murder of his son, two people allegedly have been trying to extort millions of dollars from the legendary entertainer in a plot that also targeted the CBS television network. Correspondent Jerry Bowen reports tonight on the Cosby extortion and murder investigations.
This is the dark-haired man with the goatee, the man in this composite sketch who Los Angeles police interviewed last night as a potential witness in the Innis Cosby killing. 27-year-old Corey Pantzer, today reclaiming the car investigators impounded when Pantzer and a traveling companion were taken in for questioning and then released.
I tried to help the police by trying to recount everything I saw that night.
It was, said Pantzer, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, being near the murder scene, looking at the lights of Los Angeles.
So I went up, looked around, and then when I was coming back down, it was all flared off on the highway, so I parked my car, I walked down onto the crime scene, and they told me I couldn't get back on the highway from that way.
Meanwhile, in New York federal court today, a woman claiming to be Bill Cosby's illegitimate daughter and a man named as her accomplice were facing extortion charges. An FBI complaint says Autumn Jackson threatened in phone calls and faxes, including one the day Ennis Cosby was killed, that if Bill Cosby did not pay her $40 million, she would sell her story to a tabloid newspaper. And CBS, which airs Cosby's show, revealed it also received a similar demand with Jackson's name on it. This show and his private life just happens to be one of your best properties, and this disclosure could undoubtedly affect your ratings negatively. Cosby's spokesman categorically denies the entertainer is the woman's father and agrees with her attorney that this matter has no connection to the murder.
This has nothing to do with Ennis Cosby. It has nothing to do with his tragic death.
And in Los Angeles tonight, police are apparently left with this single sketch to work with, the prime suspect in the murder of Ennis Cosby. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
A new twist in the Unabomber case, trying to prove that the Unabomber, the man allegedly the Unabomber, is mentally ill. The family shows some letters he wrote. Also ahead, are your kids using drugs? A new home test just approved by the FDA could answer the question. And the most amazing thing that ever happened to one village in India, the American who fell out of the sky.
Year after year, women have trusted one brand of laxative more than any other, Correctol. And unlike many laxatives, including most X-Lax products, Correctol tablets contain no phenolphthalein. Instead, they contain the ingredients doctors recommend most for overnight relief. Gentle, dependable relief.
I'll stay with you.
Correctol, caring for women.
Through the years.
Of all the things you could wish for, if you have osteoporosis, what you probably wish for most is stronger bones. Now you can do more than wish.
Ask your doctor or call 1-800-505-WISH.
When you use Pam, the food gets all the attention. Because Pam never adds a funny aftertaste. Clean, 100% natural Pam. Taste the food, not the spray.
Those of you who are parents and suspect that your children may be using drugs now have a new option. A home drug testing kit that has been approved for sale by the FDA. But what are the implications for doing drug testing at home? Correspondent Bob Orr reports from Washington.
Dr. Brown's home drug testing system will allow parents who suspect that their kids are doing drugs to ease their minds or confirm their fears in the privacy of their own homes. The test developer claims it's as accurate as anything done in a laboratory.
We feel that parents will not only have the responsibility, but will be empowered with the ability to actually do something.
The test, similar to other unapproved home drug tests already on the market, is designed to detect marijuana, PCP, amphetamines, cocaine, heroin, codeine, and morphine. Each Dr. Brown kit contains a paper cup for collecting urine, storage and shipping tubes, and an identification number to keep the test anonymous. Lab results can be obtained by calling an 800 number, and those with positive drug readings will be offered counseling referrals. Experts caution the home test may not curb drug abuse and may in fact further damage fragile family relationships.
And it really does violate the trust issues between a parent and a child. The child begins to feel like, you don't trust me. You know, why are you have to take my urine, and it's a personal violation.
Dr. Brown says his test will be available in drugstores and in supermarkets in 6 to 8 weeks at a cost of less than $30. While there's a great initial demand, its long-term effectiveness in combating family drug problems is far less certain. Dan?
Bob Orr, thanks. Oatmeal manufacturers will soon be able to add something new to the familiar breakfast cereals label. It may help reduce the risk of heart disease when included in a low-fat diet. The FDA will also permit the health claim to be made on products containing oat bran and oat flour. After studying the scientific data, the FDA concluded that the fiber in oats does help reduce cholesterol levels. Coming up later, Eye on America. Chemical terrorism in the United States. Are we ready, willing, and able to counter this threat?
Grandpa, can I marry you?
Oh, honey, you're so young. I could never keep up with you.
But Mom says that's why you drink that.
Ensure is complete balanced nutrition. #1 doctor recommended. As a meal or a snack, it helps you stay healthy, active, energetic.
I'm sure you'll marry someone even more fun than me.
Well, will you at least come to the wedding?
Sure. I'll be there.
Ensure, #1 doctor recommended. Drink to your health.
It was midnight. I'm hurting. I can't sleep, but I'm worried about taking something. Is it okay? What am I going to feel like in the morning? Finally, I tried Tylenol PM. It stops my pain, helps me sleep. Tylenol PM did the job. Next morning, I'm up with the sun and I feel great. It was our best run in weeks. A great way to start the day.
Rest easy. It's Tylenol PM.
It's my worst nightmare. Only it's real. Heartburn surging up to here. What my doctor calls acid reflux. When I get it, he says forget the usual things. They aren't for acid reflux. You need Gaviscon.
Only Gaviscon forms a protective barrier that helps keep stomach acid down, where it belongs. Mylanta can't, Pepcid AC can't. Only Gaviscon can. Wipe out the worst way to wake up. Get Gaviscon. It's different from here all the way to here.
What puts life back into dying communities? What erases fear and handcuffs crime? You start with fixing a broken window. It's an idea that could save the neighborhood. Tomorrow on This Morning.
The teenage sweethearts accused of murdering their newborn son were released on bail today by a judge in Wilmington, Delaware. After entering the courthouse today, Amy Grossberg and Brian Peterson learned they'd be freed after posting $300,000 bail each. Both are required to wear electronic monitoring devices and remain at home with their parents in New Jersey. The couple's baby was found in a dumpster behind the motel where the child was born 2 months ago. And from Boulder, Colorado tonight, correspondent Diana Olick has more to report on the still mysterious murder of 6-year-old Jean-Benet Ramsey. A spokesman for the Ramsey family has confirmed that the $118,000 demanded in a ransom note was the exact amount John Ramsey received as his company bonus. And the family's own investigators say that Jean-Benet's 20-year-old half-brother was in Atlanta when the murder occurred and that his mother will vouch for him. The brother of the suspected Unabomber was instrumental in having Ted Kaczynski arrested last year, and now the same brother hopes to play an equally decisive role in sparing him from the death penalty. David Kaczynski is expected to soon testify on his brother's behalf before a Justice Department committee that will decide whether to seek the death penalty against the alleged Unabomber. Correspondent Jim Stewart has more about this.
Hey, guys, come on! It seems accused Unabomber suspect Ted Kaczynski wasn't quite the uncommunicative hermit he first appeared. Over the years, he mailed hundreds of letters back home, letters now being used in a bold public bid to help him escape the death penalty. Several of the letters were recently released by the Kaczynski family in an effort to prove he's mentally ill and therefore not a fit candidate for execution. In one letter, for example, Kaczynski wrote of being visited in a dream by a man named Lord Daddy Lombrosis. I felt awed by him and thought, this is God, Kaczynski wrote, yet in my heart I defied him. Lord Daddy Lombrosis stood for the Technological Society itself. In a mail bomb war against the so-called Technological Society, the Unabomber killed 3 people and injured 23 others, while leading authorities on the longest manhunt in U.S. history. That may have been the work of a tormented mind, agrees former U.S. prosecutor Lawrence Barcella, but it also required cunning.
There virtually does not exist a more premeditated crime than a bombing, and a bombing where a death results. You have to have meticulous and thorough forethought and planning that go into it.
Kaczynski's letters could also prove to be a two-edged sword, for while many are rambling affairs filled with mood swings, in at least one he was coldly direct. I am not suffering, sick, or discouraged, and I don't know what indications you think you have that I am so, he wrote in November 1995. I don't ever want to see you or hear from you or any other member of our family again. 4 months later, that tormented family turned him in to the FBI. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan told Congress today inflation could soon make a comeback driven by a demand for higher wages. Greenspan suggested that at some point, workers will no longer be willing to accept lower wages in exchange for job security. Now, how worried is Wall Street about this and the possibility of increased interest rates? The Dow gained 40 points today to close at its 4th straight record high.
I'm not going to compromise on a laxative. I want one that's strong enough to work overnight, but also one that's gentle. That's why I choose Dulcolax.
Dulcolax is both strong and gentle. It's so effective, doctors recommend it more than Correctol and other leading brands. And Dulcolax has a special comfort coating to protect your stomach. Don't compromise on your laxative. Get strong, get gentle, get Dulcolax. And for strong and gentle relief in minutes, get Dulcolax suppositories.
Your family. You'd give your life for them, but that's not what they want. They just want you to stay healthy. But high cholesterol could put you at risk of a first heart attack, even if you have no signs of heart problems. And the fact is, about 1/3 don't survive their first heart attack. Call 1-800-PREVENT to find out about treatment plans that could help you cut your chances of a first heart attack and live a longer, healthier life. Call your doctor or 1-800-PREVENT now from Bristol-Myers Squibb.
Ah, the good old days of supermarket shopping. When nothing stood between you and your next meal. Nothing. But today, there are materials that help lock out harmful contaminants and reduce spoilage, keeping us safe and the food we eat fresh. Plastics make it possible. So now, the rest is history.
Oh, none for me, thanks. Why? Dairy foods do a number on my stomach.
You lactose intolerant?
Huh?
You know, gas, bloating. I get it too, but it's no problem anymore. Try this.
Introducing Lactaid Ultra. One little caplet just before eating lets you digest dairy foods easily and naturally.
Next time, let's go for milkshake. With a little Lactaid Ultra on the side.
New Lactaid Ultra. Go on, enjoy dairy again. Call 1-888-ULTRA now for a free sample.
He says he's down on his luck, but if you put him up for one night, he'll do an honest day's work. Are Americans still kind to strangers? The surprising answer on Coast to Coast, Wednesday on CBS.
Tonight's Eye Out America investigates the frightening threat of chemical terrorism. What would happen if deadly chemicals were released in a crowded American city? What, if any, contingency plans have been made to protect big urban populations? David Martin, our national security correspondent, has been digging into this, and the answers he's found are not particularly reassuring.
The Marine Corps' newest unit, frontline troops on a battlefield where firepower counts for little, training to handle a chemical attack by terrorists. Medic Benjamin Powell will be one of the first into the hot zone.
By the time you get in there, you know what kind of gas you're dealing with.
We don't know a specific gas. We know it's nerve, blister, or something like that. We don't know a specific type agent yet.
The enemy is invisible, a poison gas which in this drill has incapacitated spectators in a sports arena. Powell's weapon is a tiny camera attached to his gas mask.
There's one.
That can transmit pictures of the victims to experts like Dr. Ed Eitzen hundreds of miles away.
This looks like acute nerve agent exposure. Those Marines were at the Olympics last summer and were waiting in the wings during the inaugural. But they can't be everywhere. If terrorists should choose a less obvious target, the military won't be the first to arrive on the scene. It will be the local fire or police department, which will not be nearly as prepared.
Firefighters know how to deal with some hazardous chemicals, but Gary Brees of the International Association of Fire Chiefs admits they are not ready for a poison gas attack.
This is chemicals that they've not dealt with before, that they do not have the ability to detect. So in not having the ability to detect something, it's very difficult to respond to it appropriately.
After nerve gas killed 12 people in a Tokyo subway, New York City tested its ability to deal with a similar attack. Former Senator Sam Nunn has seen the results.
We have exercises that we've held to determine how prepared we are, and they show glaring unpreparedness to deal with this kind of threat. The first people who come to the rescue of the immediate victims are the next victims.
Okay. Probably the best chemical response team this country has is a small Army unit run by Lieutenant Colonel Tim Madare. He can't talk about it, but a year and a half ago, his team was dispatched to Disneyland after it was threatened with a chemical attack.
Our requirements for airborne are very quick. 4 hours from notice.
4 hours you're in the air, another 2 to 3 hours you're on the ground. It's going to be 8 hours before you get to the scene.
That That's true.
8 hours after it occurs, it's already over. All those people have been exposed and have been transported to the hospital by that time.
District critical!
Medic Gregory Pettaway knows there's only one way his unit is going to get there in time.
I think what we're hoping is that our intelligence will tell us exactly where we need to be and what time.
But intelligence gave no warning a bomb was about to go off at the World Trade Center. Long after the smoke had cleared, investigators uncovered horrifying evidence that the bomb had contained deadly cyanide gas.
The trial judge in New York in the World Trade Center bombing found that there was a chemical element there in that explosion, but that was consumed by the flames. If he is correct, we've already had our first chemical attempt in our own country.
1, 2, 3.
It almost certainly won't be the last. And these Marines, despite all their training and equipment, may well be too little, too late. At Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, this is David Martin for Eye on America.
Russian President Boris Yeltsin was described today by a spokesman as, quote, tired from working on documents, the kind of comment that raises even more questions about Yeltsin's health and his ability to last. In New York today, I talked with one man who would like to have Yeltsin's job, Army General Alexander Lebed. I asked him if he thought there would be an election if Yeltsin died or quit the presidency. He said he sees that as unlikely. He said the ruling circles in Russia won't allow it.
They know who will win the elections. I will. They expect nothing good for themselves out of that. Either they will say it's quicker and easier for the parliament to choose a new president, or they will declare a state of emergency.
General Lebed came to this country for the inauguration of President Clinton as a guest of Republican Senator William Roth of Delaware.
It's bad enough to see bad grades, but when your child loses their confidence...
Low self-esteem and bad grades kind of go together.
He just wasn't the same Christopher.
We help them build their skills, which makes them feel better.
He got all the help that he needed at Sylvan.
That they can achieve something that they didn't think was possible. That makes all the difference.
Christopher's the happy child that we knew him always to be. He's a success again.
Sylvan Learning Center. Call 1-800-EDUCATE today for the center nearest you. That's 1-800-EDUCATE.
My husband notices a lot about my teeth. It's because my husband's a dentist. He wants my teeth to be their very best. We use Mentadent.
Mentadent's unique formula works like no ordinary toothpaste. It actually targets plaque, reaching where even your brush can't with its powerful bubbling action.
There's just this bubbling, effervescent feeling that I don't get with ordinary toothpaste.
Mentadent, more than you ever expected from a toothpaste.
I know my mouth is clean because I can feel it.
My arthritis.
Bayer, powerful pain relief, and so much more. Also try Extra Strength Bayer, nothing stronger for pain.
Jack and I are partners. We need to be in shape. The barley in this new Alpo is good for his muscles, and the vet says rice is easy to digest.
New lamb meal, rice, and barley, because a great dog deserves Alpo.
When gas makes me feel like this, I take a little pill like this.
Gas X Soft Gels. As much gas medicine as this much Mylanta. Concentrated for fast relief. Try Gas X Soft Gels, or great-tasting chewable tablets.
The oldest survivor of the sinking of the Titanic has died in England. Dorothy Haseman was 100 years old. Her father was one of 1,500 people who went down with the ship, which struck an iceberg in 1912. Well, when a silver balloon went down yesterday in a wheat and mustard field in India, it was the end of a bold quest for American adventurer Steve Fawcett and the event of a lifetime for the local villagers. CBS News correspondent Vicki Mabry was the only correspondent to follow Fawcett's attempt to fly around the world all the way to his extraordinary ending.
Steve Fawcett returned to the village of Nongkar today to check the condition of his balloon, and the whole village came along to see the man who had dropped in on them the day before.
So I came in for this landing and came down here and hit the tree. Not a great landing. But I was here and 100 villagers came rushing up.
wondering, what do I do now? If I get out of the capsule, you know, maybe they'll start taking things. I didn't know what the situation was.
The situation was that those 100 villagers told 100 more, and on until the American and his flying machine were the biggest excitement in eastern India. And no one wanted to take anything. Village police made sure of that. People really just wanted to look. Some quizzical, some skeptical, some with inside information to share. The tree that snagged Fawcett's balloon is called a mahua. The locals make liquor from fermented mahua fruit. Who knows what they can make of shredded mylar. Fawcett even videotaped some of the crucial points of the flight.
Just the past hour, we got word that Libya is not going to allow us to fly through.
These are the last moments before his landing. Tomorrow, he'll truck the capsule to the nearest airport and ship it home to the United States, where someday soon, Americans can view it at the National Air and Space Museum. But today, he put on a spectacle for the village of Nongkar, burning off the unspent fuel that he had hoped would take him around the world. Vicki Mabry, CBS News, New Delhi.
And that's part of our world tonight. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting from New York. See you tomorrow. Good night.
This week, watch CBS and the class of 2000.